Hey everyone, it's Father Sean here with the weekly update. And probably the most dramatic thing, the most love it or hate it thing that's happened in our state this week is on Thursday at 6 p.m., the mask mandate went into effect. And you've probably had an opportunity to at least read or maybe discuss or to hear what is involved in that mandate. The gist of it is if we're indoors in any public building, any building that's not a home, or if we're outside and we can't keep social distance, we are required to wear masks throughout the state of Ohio. And then there are a few exemptions, and that's what people have asked. Is there a religious exemption to this? And if you look at the information on the Ohio Health Department website, the gist of the answer is there isn't. There is one little exemption for those who are officiating religious services. There's a couple other ones that don't affect us too much. Maybe they affect you, those people who are disabled and it affects their health. And yeah, so I guess that in some ways I'm saddened by the fact that I can't join everybody in the mask wearing. You kind of feel like you're a little bit different if you can't join the suffering of the people. But the basic question, and I've already got it on multiple times, is will we be required to wear a mask if we come to Mass, if we come to church? And the gist of the answer is yes, we will. That is what we're being asked to do, and that's the gist of the answer. And there's so many different reactions people have. I have my own reactions to it, but it seems like somewhere on either side is pretty extremes. You know, on the one hand, we hear from voices that, well, it's about time that we have to wear masks, and then there's sometimes like a shaming of those who don't wear a mask or who haven't worn a mask up until now. You know, that they're callous, they don't care, whatever. So that's one side, and then the other side, which I probably hear a lot more, is that this is crazy, this is insane, this is an infringement on our rights. The government's overstepping their bounds and overreaching into our public life, and you kind of see where that's all coming from, and that comes from, and there's a whole bunch of like different aspects of that frustration. It sounds like it. And some people, it sounds like there's the frustration that masks really don't even work. There's doesn't seem to be the hard evidence that they work, or at least that's kind of what's going around. And you know, I'm not a doctor. I can't speak to all of that. I can just read a few things before I go crazy, and I need to get off the news sites. So there's the masks don't actually work, and then there's kind of the thoughts, well, this infringes upon our rights, that this is a religious freedom issue, that the government shouldn't be saying anything that happens in the church. And in general, we do expect religious freedom in our country, but that always has some sort of limits, right? That has some sort of limits for the safety of people. And maybe the simplest example that comes to mind is our elevators. Our elevators at the parishes, if you know, at Immaculate Conception in St. Joe, there's elevators. Those have to be inspected each year. It's not an infringement of our religious liberty for the government to require elevators to be inspected because it's for the safety of people. Now you could argue that's unnecessary. It probably wouldn't be right, but so that's something similar. Of course, it's a whole lot grander scale. It affects so many more people, but that's the similar idea that the government is asking us to do this for the health of people, and you can argue whether or not it actually does help. But at the end of the story, this is what we're being asked to do. And so I guess the follow-up question is, if this is what we're asked to do, is this something that we should stand up and we should publicly fight as a church, right? Your own individual conscience, you'll have to make that decision yourself. But as a church, is this something that is this where we draw the line in the sand and say we will not cross this line? And it seems like the general thought throughout, really it seems to be throughout the world, that this is not the issue where we're going to draw the line in the sand as the government trying to overtake the church. In different places, there are lines that get drawn in the sand. You think about, there's issues in China right now about whether the communist government or not gets to approve the appointment of bishops. Like that is monumental. That is huge, saying who can be in the leadership in the church. And then, one day, who knows what the church will be asked to do as far as marriages, as all of that is so different from the secular world and the sacredness of the church. The gist of it is, I don't think this is the place where we draw the line in the sand. It's not an unjust law, right? We have an obligation to stand up against unjust laws. And on the whole, I think most moral theologians wouldn't say that this is one of those unjust laws. It's not one we're particularly happy about. It's not one that everybody's going to celebrate, especially amongst our parishioners. It's one that a lot of people have a lot of frustration about. And more than anything else, it's rather annoying, to be honest, to put on a mask, to wear the mask, to not be able to see people's facial expression. And there's a whole different questions about schooling, about children, whether or not being able to see expressions, how important that is, especially people with mental disabilities, and that's kind of a different conversation. But we're asked to do this, and it's inconvenient, it's annoying, it's not something that really any of us are thrilled about doing. But in the end of the day, it's not huge, right? The very first person I talked to after 6 p.m. last night, I ran into in the parking lot of one of our churches. And she said, "Father, I'll wear whatever I have to, as long as I can still go to Mass." I thought, I wish I had that attitude. I was kind of bummed out through the day, but that attitude of whatever it takes to be able to go to Mass. And there's parts of the world where people walks 10 miles to get to Mass each week. There's parts of the world where you risk your life every time you go to Mass because you don't know if a terrorist is going to come in and blow up the church. We have a very small inconvenience now. We have the inconvenience of wearing a mask. But I think deep down all of us know that that little inconvenience is worth it. It's worth it to be put out just a little bit. Maybe it's bigger, for your own health. Maybe it is more inconvenient. But I think it's something small that we can offer up, right? To not forget that inconveniences, that annoyances, that things that bother us, we can offer them up, and that can have a great good throughout the world. Think about what maybe your mom said when you were growing up, or maybe your grandmother when you had a little sacrifice to make, and they said, offer it up. And so I decided that every time I have to put up on my mask, I'll offer it up for conversion. First for my own conversion, so that I may come to know Jesus Christ better. Then for the conversion of all of our parishioners, that they may in a deeper way experience the mercy of Jesus Christ. And then third, for all of those who don't know him, that they may come to know, to love, and to serve Jesus Christ. Because it's the best thing in the world. So that's what I'll be offering up my mask wearing for. I'll be offering it up for conversion, my own, all of yours, and everybody else. Each and every one of us, in a deeper way, may experience the joy of Jesus Christ. God bless, and look forward to seeing you at Mass.